Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today for Accelerating Customer Expansion by Managing the Customer Journey. We're really excited to have Poom here with us. Just some housekeeping notes before we get started. Feel free to join the conversation online with the hashtag Customer Lifecycle. Feel free to mention Get Amity or Kia anytime throughout the webinar. You can even send your questions. We'll be sending the slides and the recording either today or tomorrow. So you'll make sure you have a copy of those, and we'll be making lots of time for Q&A at the end. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Poom. Kia, it's all yours.
Great. Thank you, Matthew, and welcome everyone to today's webinar on accelerating customer expansion by managing the customer journey. My name is Poom, and I'll be your presenter today. For those of you that don't know me, I've been in the software business for 21 years, leading and building customer success organizations before it was called customer success. My approach and expertise lies in accelerating business growth through a customer-centric approach. I really enjoy the alignment of business operations to the customer journey because it's by far the most elegant way I've seen in driving revenue and scale. So much so, I've established Kia CX to help businesses accelerate their growth through CX innovation. So I'm thrilled to be sharing with you today what it means to effectively expand revenue from the install base by managing the customer journey. Before we dive into how to expand revenue out of the install base, let's just all level set on what customer expansion really means. Very simply, customer expansion means understanding your customer's business and using that knowledge to make your product a critical ingredient of their business growth. Understand their business and make your product critical to their growth. If you only remember one thing from today's webinar, remember to understand your customers. Customers specifically chose your product to grow their business, so understand that and help them be successful. If you enable their growth, you'll enable yours. So remember, understand your customer's business. Okay, accelerating customer expansion. Isn't it strange that when we think of business growth, we think we need to do the same things only faster? Customer expansion does not mean doing more of the same faster. It means being more focused about what you do and being smarter about how you do that. The good news is that by managing the customer journey, we can be more focused in terms of how we land and expand accounts to make customer expansion a deliberate practice. Indeed, companies that actively understand their customer's business and use that knowledge to make the product business critical and then manage that via the customer journey make expansion a natural consequence of the customer's business evolution. Today then, I'll walk you through some of the key concepts that are important in accelerating customer expansion, and I'll share some specific examples of things you can try with your customers. First, we'll look at some important concepts to help you understand your customer in order to target your services to greater effect, the importance of managing your customers to success, and thirdly, we'll look at how to set your organization up for success using the power of expectation setting. So why is understanding your customers so key to expansion? The more you understand how your product can contribute to the customer's business growth, the more you can expand its usage. So then what does it mean to understand your customer's needs? First, there's the table stakes information that's required. In the previous webinar on customer retention, we talked about understanding why the customer bought and what they're trying to achieve immediately with your product. This is, of course, still critical. Additionally, understanding how the customer operates and their business challenges to growth, as well as knowing key milestones such as launch dates, major announcements, their product releases, etc., all gives you valuable insights into what's important to the customer in order to create product expansion opportunities and motivation. So this information can all be had simply by talking with the customer. What I want to cover today then, in terms of understanding your customer, are the concepts of customer segmentation and business maturity, as they play a significant role in determining the success of your expansion strategy. So the idea behind customer segmentation is to group similar customers so you can tailor your product and services to meet the needs of each segment. From a marketing perspective, it of course helps to target very specifically to the needs of the segment for sales conversion. But for CS specifically, grouping customers with the same needs helps customer success develop a more focused and efficient approach in guiding the customer through their journey. I often use the analogy of working out to illustrate this point. Some people train to be world-class athletes, so they need to do a lot of training. Some athletes want to be healthy or simply have fun, so they only need to work out a couple of times a week. Depending on the athlete, a coach will train them differently. This concept of different customers having different needs is important for customer success to understand, as a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work. Segmentation helps in understanding the full potential of varying customers so that the quote-unquote training them on the product is appropriate for their needs. In fact, this was one of my biggest aha moments at Eloqua during our journey innovating our customers' experience. We were so focused on the product and trying to get everyone to do everything with it, i.e. one-size-fits-all approach, that we in essence were overtraining, if you will, segments of our customers, making it more difficult for them to adopt the product and to do business with us than needed. So once we understood that, along with how business maturity, which I'll talk about next, fit into the pacing of customers, we were better able to focus our land and expand strategy accordingly. So here's the way we segmented customers at Eloqua. We determined for us specifically that spend potential and marketing maturity were key factors in segmenting our customer base. So in this example, customers on the right side, right-hand column, were the ones we actively looked to expand as they had spend potential. That is, they could spend more with us either by expanding out into more departments or regions, or could purchase more from us. There was more product features to be had. On the left side, those customers had either purchased the full product suite or they were fully deployed, so there was no more to sell to them. We simply needed to ensure they were using the product consistently and deriving business value from it, so we'd keep them. And then on the x-axis, we mapped out how mature or advanced the customer's marketing organization was. Were they just starting out and needed to use foundational elements of the product, or could they go on to more advanced topics to expand their usage of the product? That helped us determine what the correct pacing was, which I'll cover shortly. Therefore, use segmentation to categorize like customers so you can benefit from operational efficiency. Understand the general goals of the customers so you know what needs to be done with them, specifically what sort of activities throughout the journey. And then target the services delivered to ensure you're not over or underserving the customer, that you're right sizing them for their needs. So let's take our first poll. How mature is your organization's segmentation model? 1, it's missing. We don't segment our customers. Ad hoc, we segment customers but do not change our delivery based on segmentation. Repeatable, we segment customers and deliver service based on segmentation. And systemic, we segment customers and we use segmentation strategically to land and expand customers. All right. Looks like the majority. It looks like the majority of you are between ad hoc and repeatable. Matthew, are we skipping to the results now?
Hi, Kia. We're at the results here.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, I didn't see them on my. Great. So definitely, yeah, almost half of you are at ad hoc. So one of the things to do is, review your segmentation model and ensure that you are targeting your activities to only those that the customer requires to achieve their goals. And another little thing I just want to add, I've often seen at clients where they show me how they've segmented their customer base, and they look at personas of the customer. One thing it's important to note is look at specifically, the personas is great, and the segmentation is obviously what you want to take a look at. When you're looking at that segmentation, look at what are the customer's business goals that they're trying to do, so that you can understand what corresponding activities you need to do to help with the adoption of the product and using that. So those could be some of the things that you look at. All right. The other concept that plays into understanding your customer and how successful you'll be in expanding your account is the notion of business maturity. The idea is that you want to continually advance the customer's use of your product within their environment, but at a pace they can handle and manage. If your product is introducing major change to its users or the business, or you're trying to get the customer to do too much or move too fast, not only does this potentially slow down expansion, it also risks the customer churning, actually. So going back to the sports analogy, if someone's goal is to run a marathon, but they've never run before, then pacing their training to build up to a marathon is critical in their success and enjoyment of the sport. You wouldn't start having them run a marathon the very next day. You would build up to that. So analogously, pacing the customer's product adoption is also a critical part of your expansion strategy. It should be aligned with your customer's maturity in the use of the product, as well as where their organization is in terms of moving them along. So business maturity therefore helps to determine the appropriate pacing for your customers and what objectives you should be defining within your customer success plans each year. The objective is not necessarily to have the customer do everything in the product immediately. It's to make them successful achieving their business goals. So build this into your land and expand strategy so you're easy to do business with. And adopting the product is not only beneficial to the business, but it's fun to use as well. You keep that enjoyment going. So what does business maturity and pacing mean in a practical sense? Here's another example from Eloqua of the customer success program that was put in place. So just a little bit of background, the format of the program was that a customer had a coach assigned to their account that they met with once a week for the first 10 weeks after deployment. Each week, the customer was assigned activities and homework to complete on their own, and then they met with their coach so that they could discuss any questions or challenges they had to assist in their understanding of the product. And we put that in place to make sure that the product adoption was smoother, because we did have a bit of an adoption curve. Having defined the market, a lot of concepts were new to customers. So we knew that in order to get them to adopt with a product, we needed to help them out a bit. But the problem we were having is that prior to understanding how business maturity played into expansion, was that the program outline was too onerous for the customer to complete, so they weren't getting it done. It was too much, and some of it wasn't relevant to their work, so there wasn't motivation to do it either. We were, in fact, fatiguing our customer by being so comprehensive from the product perspective that they weren't doing any of the activities. So once we understood this, the program was tweaked to understand what the individual had to get done as part of their regular course of business, and then program elements were specifically tailored to only cover topics that would allow them to successfully get their work done. And once proficient with that, follow-on programs could ensure further expansion. Sorry, I'm getting a password notification on here. All right, so therefore, look at what your success program is having the customer do. Is it appropriate and aligned to meet the customer's objectives and at a pace the organization can manage? If not, what can you do to make it easier for the customer to adopt? The objective then is to use business maturity to understand what is important and relevant to the customer, not get them to use every product feature and function as quickly as possible, which sometimes can be counterintuitive because we figure if they're doing everything in the product, they're sticky, but that's not necessarily the case. Therefore, use business maturity to align the customer's use of the product to their business goals so they're doing relevant things with your product. Pace the customer at a rate that is appropriate for them. Don't overwhelm them with more of the product than is necessary. And then evolve their use of the product in alignment to the change happening within their environment and at a pace that is in sync with that change. Sorry, I'm having a network connection problem, so I'm just going to connect again. Okay, I'm having some network connections problems here. Matthew, why don't if you could just keep advancing the slides and tell me what the slides are, I can just follow along in that way.
Absolutely. So the last slide you were on here was the business maturity slide in terms of the Success Coach program. Would you like me to move forward from that one?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the next one is use business maturity to, align product use with business goals.
Right. So as I mentioned, align the customer's use of the product to their business goals so they're doing relevant things with your product. Pace the customer at a rate that is appropriate for them. Don't overwhelm them with more of the product than is necessary. And then evolve the use of their product in alignment to the change happening within their environment and at a pace that is in sync with that change. So let's move on to the next poll. Does your organization consider business maturity as part of the customer journey? 1, we don't consider business maturity and have one standard deployment for all. 2, we vary our delivery depending on the customer, but we aim to have all customers using the full product features as quickly as possible. We may be making adoption harder than it needs to be. And 3, we vary our delivery depending on the customer, and we tailor what features of the product they should use, which should focus on depending on their needs. We look to expand product usage as a longer-term land and expand strategy.
Hi, Kia. So we have about 21% for option 1, about 28% for option 2, and 51% for option 3.
Okay. All right. So good. So a lot of you do consider a business maturity within that. Again, for those of you that this might be a newer concept or are, have not necessarily considered it, you might want to consider whether you're making it unnecessarily difficult for your customer to adopt your product, and use the concept of business maturity to sort of right-size the pace and relevance of the adoption of your product within their business environment. So moving on to the next topic. So now that we understand our customers, i.e. what's important to them, the other key for expansion is managing them to success. So how does customer success ensure customers are moving along their journey and continuing to expand their usage of the product? The answer is use the understanding of the customer's business plans to define activities and milestones that keep the customer motivated, focused, and accountable to their own goals, so that customer success as a partner is in assisting in, not solely responsible for, the customer reaching their objectives. Quite often I see customer success organizations that really do a lot of hand-holding and everything to get the customer to adopt, which is great, and I definitely think it needs to be done, especially early on in the company's evolution. It's something that needs to slowly evolve as the company evolves too, in order to scale. So to move on to the next slide, if the customer journey is the route to successful adoption, as we talked about in the first webinar, then the customer success plan is the detailed map to get there. It outlines the key activities and major milestones that customers should complete on the journey so that they can see progress and success. In other words, think of the customer success plan as keeping the customer motivated, focused, and moving forward. It's really your tool in doing so. And in the next slide, elements of an effective customer success plan are that all milestones, activities, and actions are outlined. It is clear and concise so the customer knows what to do, and it is visual and easy to read so it's user-friendly. Additionally, ensure that the customer success plan is aligned to the customer's objectives and update it yearly to reflect maturity development, so that you're continuing to build in product expansion into those customer success plans to execute on your land and expand strategy. So we go to the final poll for today. How effectively does your organization use customer success plans? Missing, we don't use customer success plans. Ad hoc, we use plans for customers when they ask to see an outline of activities. Repeatable, customer success uses customer success plans regularly to manage customers through their journey. And systemic, customer success uses customer success plans regularly and factors in segmentation and business maturity when outlining the activities customers should be completing.
Hi, Kia. So we have about 31% that categorize theirs as missing, 29 for ad hoc, 35 for repeatable, and 4 for systemic.
Okay, all right. So many of you do use it repeatedly, and still quite a large number of you are not using them at all. And I would definitely highly recommend it. I guess if you spoke in project management terms, in the project management world, it would be sort of analogous. I think of it as analogous to a project plan. So definitely very effective in using that. And look for ways to factor the concepts of segmentation and business maturity into your customer success plans to keep that product adoption activities relevant to their business goals and manageable enough to keep the customer motivated, focused, and moving forward. So then the final component of today's agenda is setting up your success. So it's actually a critical element to the expansion strategy as well, as it's ensuring that you're setting up your own success. Once you understand your customer's business and are managing them towards their success, you need to put it all together to construct your own success. By properly managing customer expectations and meeting them, you'll be able to continually ensure that the customer has a great experience so that they don't want to leave. So let's take a look at the power of expectation setting. So this is such a simple yet powerful concept that often gets neglected. Simply put, set your customer expectations so you can always exceed them and deliver a positive experience. You've likely all seen this before. Basically, if you've set expectations with a customer at a certain level, in this case the middle line, and you deliver below that line, the customer will have a negative experience. Expectations fell short. And conversely, if you deliver above or exceed customer expectations, then the customer will have a positive experience. So therefore, the goal is to always set that customer's expectations so you can always deliver above the line. It's amazing how I continually see customers over-promising and trying to overcommit to their own detriment. So don't do it. Is what I can simply say is just don't overpromise and don't overcommit. Deliver what you say you will and generate amazing experience. It truly is that simple. And we all sort of have that feeling of, wow, if I don't promise the moon, the customer is going to be upset. But actually, it's often not the case. The fact is, customers are happy when you say you'll do something and you don't. So if you say you're going to respond by the end of the day, do it. If you need more time, say that you're going to respond by the end of next business day. And if you don't know the exact time, such as like how long it takes for the product to get fixed, then tell them when they can expect an update and meet that commitment for that update so that they just feel like you're on top of it and you're still communicating with them. It's worse to overpromise and miss than underpromise and deliver. And just don't underestimate how powerful this concept is in generating your success. I think probably more than anything, I have seen customer success managers shine and get very confident and be able to manage customers really well when they use this tool to their advantage and to great effect. Then in the next slide, if we put all the concepts together, constructing your success looks something like this. Understand your customer's business and their objectives. Listen to them so you can understand what's important to them and what will motivate that. That'll give you clues as to how you can keep them moving. And then align those objectives with those of your organization through the customer journey. You know, I often talk about the customer journey and how important it is to understand what the customer is going through. And it is very important and true. The reality is you're never going to know exactly everything about the customer journey, and every customer is slightly different. I often get asked, do I need to create a customer journey for every customer? No. The concept is that you generally understand their journey, but then where you really use the power of the customer journey is to align what they've just told you in their business objectives to how you operationally help customers adopt a product and match that up through the customer journey and then use the customer success plan to manage that. So use that journey to align those goals and then set those expectations throughout the journey with, as we just discussed, with the power of the expectation setting. And then, as I just mentioned, manage them to success via the customer success plan. So to summarize, To proactively accelerate customer expansion, you must understand your customer's business, then use that knowledge to make your product critical to their business growth. Understand where customers' business is heading, and use that knowledge to define an expansion strategy that will align to their objectives. In slide 26, use segmentation and the concept of business maturity to help you understand your customers so that you can target specifically what services are required to assist them and in a way that's enjoyable and manageable for them. Use customer success plans to manage the customer to success and set expectations such that you can always exceed them and deliver a positive experience. As long as your customers are successful in growing with your product, you'll successfully expand revenue. Remember, if you only take away one thing from today, remember to understand your customer's business so you can grow with them. So what can you take away today to get started on accelerating customer expansion? I've outlined 4 takeaway questions for you to answer now. Use these to assess how effectively your operations are set up to accelerate expansion. And for those of you who would like to discuss your specific situation around the topics presented, I'm offering a free 1-hour consult to today's webinar participants to discuss these questions. If you would like to take advantage of this, complete these questions along with the background as to the nature of your challenges and send those to me at kiacx.com to arrange for your consult. About Kia CX. I'm in the business of accelerating company growth through CX innovation. I use a methodology that I've refined over 21 years of experience building and growing customer success organizations. I've made all the mistakes. Let me help you avoid them. Let me help you establish a successful, sustainable customer success practice that scales. Thank you all for joining me today. Keep growing those customers and have fun.
Great. Thank you very much, Kia. That was awesome. Great webinar, and I'm sure everyone will be looking forward to getting the slides and the recording. And I just want to reinforce what Kia just said. Kia is an awesome consultant. She's an awesome coach. I really highly recommend you take advantage of her generous offer of an hour free consult. You'll absolutely get a ton of value out of it. My name is Paul Philp. I'm the founder and CEO of Amity. Amity is a customer success automation platform that underlies the types of processes that Kia was talking about in her webinar today. Amity integrates all of your customer data. It builds custom insights and custom health scores for your customers and feeds into our workflow automation so you can automate some of your day-to-day workflows. Absolutely critical. Our customers use Amity every day to manage their day-to-day workflows. If you want to do what Kia is recommending, a platform will absolutely accelerate you. And if you'd like a demonstration of the Amity product to see how that's the case, just drop us an email message on our website, and we'd be very happy to show you the product and tell you how it can work in your business. Okay, so we're going to move to the Q&A section now, and I'll read out the questions, and then Kia can answer them. So question number 1, is it better to understand and clearly define customer goals before segmentation plans are implemented?
To me, those are, I guess, almost independent activities. So I think that if you don't have segmentation fully outlined, you absolutely always want to understand what your customer is trying to achieve with your product. Last month we talked about in retention, understanding why they bought so that you can deliver on it. And for expansion, knowing how their business is growing and how your product plays into that is also key. So regardless, you always want to have those dialogues with customers so that you can get that information, get into their heads so you understand what they're thinking, how you can motivate them and drive the product adoption and expansion within their organization. For customer segmentation, I think you can move forward without segmentation, but I do think that segmentation is helpful, especially when you start to scale at a very large scale, and you need to take a look at how you are more efficient operationally. If you've got a wide range of customers, from very large customers to very small customers, then segmentation becomes even more important, because I don't believe that you're necessarily going to need to do all the same things to have a customer adopt and expand their usage of the product, given their different sizes and needs. And so that's how segmentation helps you. And then when you look at that segmentation and what the different needs are, you can also determine how you resource those different segments. And so you might not have the same structure, an account structure of resources for customers in different segments. And so that informs that.
Great, thanks, Kia. The next question is, can you talk about an example of a customer success plan?
Yeah, I guess the example that I displayed during the webinar is one of them. I guess specifically, the customer success, like I said, if the customer journey and generally the high-level phases and milestones that customers are traveling along is the route, generally where you want to go, then the customer success plan is like the map of how to follow that route. And so it starts to break out more specifically what are some of the key activities and milestones that the customer should be doing in order to adopt and further expand out that product. So, a lot of you are from various different companies, so it is to a certain extent company dependent, but you want to look at if you need them to use a certain number of features because you know that they're going to get ROI when they do X number of activities, then you want to put those activities in the customer success plan, and you want to have milestone dates against it, and you want to talk about putting in accountability that the customer is going to do those activities, and you also want to tie it all up ultimately to the end goal, which is their business objectives. And the more tightly you can tie those all together, the easier you can motivate the customer and keep them accountable, because those are their business goals. And now you've got the outline for them of what to follow to reach those business goals. And so you might have, like I said, in a product that is more complex or requires a lot more education and knowledge, your success plan might consist of using a number of features and functions that are necessary for them to be successful. If your product is easier to use and more self-explanatory, then your customer success plan might include milestones that are, that are doing something with their customer base, that they've used the product somehow to send out newsletters or campaigns, and that they've done that activity.
Great. A tactical question. How do you manage it when customers are too busy to get on a call with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, so there's a couple of angles and approaches. One is that's why onboarding and getting customer objectives right at the start when they sign and understanding why they bought is so critical, because that's going to help you keep the momentum going with the customer, and you're going to look them in the eyes when the paper was signed, the deal was signed, and you're going to get started, and you're going to ask them, why did you buy? And what is it that you want to accomplish? And they're going to answer that, and you're going to put that into the plans, the customer success plan, have those milestones, and you're going to use that momentum to get them started and have them be accountable to that. That's one angle. Of course, you also want to make sure you engage with the executives. So I also like to have, steering committee meetings with the executive that this initiative is really important to, and the one that gave the ultimate sign-off to purchase your product, to make sure that you're talking about what their business objectives are. The goal is not to sit there and give a status update on what's been done in your product or all the work that's been involved. It's a very much of a higher, C-level conversation about what is the business value they're currently receiving, what are they starting to notice, what are some of the challenges within their business that they're having and facing, potentially with your product and or in general that your product is trying to solve. And then another element is kind of the human psychology element that I also look at is if customers continually say, if you've done it all right, that you've got the executive aligned and driving it forward, you've got the momentum going and the plans and things are going forward. If there's consistent truancy, if you will, from the customer, then I often look at, is the customer success program and plan more complicated than it needs to be? Because if people have a really busy workday and they just don't want to do something, then they'll just not do it, and they'll if it's not being viewed by their senior management, and if it's not as urgent of a priority, they'll be able to come up with reasons why they didn't have to make that meeting or why they were too busy. And so I also start to hone in there and keep the customer accountable. I look at what's going on and addressing that, and then seeing, is there something that we can do to make it also less complicated, and not only immediately for that customer, but in the way that we deploy and service our customers in general.
Great. I'm going to combine a couple of questions together here. So I don't know, Kia, if you've ever noticed this, but every now and then a salesperson might overpromise and set expectations with the customer a little too high. I've heard rumors that can happen. So the two questions are: how do you manage the customer when the expectations have been set incorrectly or too high? And on the flip side, how do you work with sales so that that doesn't happen?
Yeah. That's obviously never happened that sales is overpromised. But so a great question. I've done a number of things. One is, I believe I talked about it in the last webinar as well, is it's really important that initial welcome call really sets the stage. I definitely call that a moment of truth within the customer journey, the first time they're meeting after the contract is signed with the team that's going to help them get your product into their environment. And so it is so key for you to level set on those why they purchased, and to ask and find out, what are they expecting from the product? What do they expect to see, and what do they want? And if they've got false expectations, then it's key to adjust those expectations and reconcile those and say, okay, well, we're going to get this, and this is what the benefits you're going to receive, and have that dialogue. It's better for them to get upset right at the beginning and where it can be readjusted than if you're going for a year and the product still didn't deliver. And sometimes the key thing, the important thing here that I would say about that is customers, we all do it. It's human nature. When we see a product or a tool, we want to solve something, we start talking about how the tool should improve to solve it, and we start to specifically tell the vendor what they need to see and how it should be done. But there's a lot of ways to do something and achieve the objectives you want in a lot of different ways. And so I think it's also really important for customer success to understand when the customer has a different expectation about it, that doesn't mean you still can't obtain or achieve their objectives with them. It just might be in a different way than they were expecting. And then just simply to illustrate that and explain that is really helpful. The other angle I'd like to talk about in terms of answering that question is what happens when sales deliberately has done that just because they needed to get more deals in. And I've unfortunately been in situations like that as well, where it was literally a business decision to sell the product, and not that it was a outright infringement or dishonest activity. It was, well, the product will be developed soon enough and it'll have it. So the intention is, okay, we're overselling a little bit, but it's on the way. And so, customer success is put in a very difficult situation to try to manage that. I think you need to make sure that is known within the organization internally, and that there's a business discussion with all the execs and determine how is that account going to be handled, because it can't be up to that CSM to then try to make the impossible work when they don't have the tools and the capabilities in the product to be able to meet those needs. And so I think you need to pull in the rest of the organization and say, okay, how are we going to manage this? How are we going to do that? And then you look at, can you have some open and frank conversation with the customer saying it might be in a few months at the next release, and this is what we're going to do in the meantime because your deployment is going to take that long, so by the time your deployment is ready, the product is going to be ready there, etc. Those are some of the things you want to take a look at. If it just truly is an outright lie, which I haven't seen it to be that egregious, so hopefully you're not experiencing that as well, but my recommendation is to call it up the chain, and basically there has to be a business decision on what's done, but you won't be successful in solving that problem, and so you need to. It's a business decision that needs to be made. It's not some sort of heroic efforts that you're going to be able to solve.
Great, thanks, Kia. So here's an Amity-related platform that you can answer in the context of any customer success tool. So practically, how do you manage the customer journey on a customer success tool like Amity? Should we create a playbook for each segment?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes and no. So I love the fact that you figure out what a playbook is for the customer journey, you put it into a tool, and you use a tool such as Amity to manage the customer base for the CSMs, prioritize what they need to look at, see how their customers are moving through the journey so that they've got that customer velocity going through and can see the health of the customer. For scaling purposes, the fewer different ways of operating that you have, the more efficient and more scalable you'll be. So my natural tendency is always to look at, can I create just one and then have some tweaks on it, or do I need to do separate? So if your customers are quite different, and maybe they're using even different products that in your product portfolio, then yeah, it would make sense to set it up differently per the segments that you have. If you have one product that all the customers are using it, but the segments use it to varying degrees, my first inclination would be to see how much you can have a high-level generic customer journey that is right for your customers, that as an aggregate customer base, and then look at throughout the activities that need to be done. The activities can be different per segment. So you might still have all the same phases that customers go through in their journey, and generally are trying to reach the same high-level objectives in some of those phases, but the detail of activities that you do, or to the extent that they use in the product, or what they're trying to accomplish, could be different. And that's also where your account coverage model comes in, because you might decide to have really technical CSMs in one segment that needs a lot of technical help, and you might have more salesy CSMs to help with account management and doing renewals, etc. So I guess the simple answer is, where possible, try to have one. Where it's necessarily, you can have many. If you do have one, there are ways to also distinguish between segments through some of the activities and the more detailed steps within the journey.
Great, thanks, Kia. Next question. We currently don't give clients a deadline for implementation, but we want to shift into that direction. What suggestions do you have for a company to move towards that mode?
Yeah, well, I would build into your deployment methodology how you support your customer's journey. Build in natural time deadlines and a sense of momentum that you introduce the customer to right away from the get-go. So with brand new customers, it's easy. They've never interacted with you before. So when you do that welcome, and when you do start to talk about how you're going to help them and assist them to be successful, tell them that as part of the way that CS operates, this is how you move forward, and these are the steps that are going to be done, and this is how we look at it from a timing perspective, and that you want to align it to a timing perspective that is reasonable for their business and their business objectives. So you make them part of defining those deadlines right from the start and keeping them to the deadlines. And if you have existing customers, that gets a bit harder because you've set sort of expectations on how the whole journey is moving along. But, find out what are some of the biggest business drivers or initiatives that are going on, or challenges that are going on internally at your customer. So understand them and use that information to motivate the customer. If the CEO is trying to drive revenue and you are, or improve churn, and you're using Amity and you need to increase churn, then you need to get deployed with Amity pretty quickly. And so, the CSM would then make sure that you keep talking about, well, your CEO's objective is to reduce churn, and if we get this implemented and you start to use this, you're going to see the results. Tie it in that way.
Great. Next question, and given the time, this is probably the last question. Onboarding and CSMs are segregated in our organization. What suggestions do you have to make a CSM plan that can be done seamlessly across those roles?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that was also the case at Eloqua, and I often see at clients, there's professional services and customer success separate, etc. What I always tell clients is that customer journey is something for the entire company, and the entire company should be understanding what that journey looks like from the moment a potential prospect comes to your website and interacts with marketing, to it going through the sales funnel, and then through onboarding, and then to CSMs. And when you map out that journey completely from end to end and understand that, then you can start to look at what are the key activities that should be done at various stages, even if CSM is not responsible. And so I actually like to see that a CSM in the welcome call and onboarding, that the CSM could actually be the one leading it and owning it. Because if the CSM is going to own the customer for life, rather than continually giving the customer a new main point of contact, and then they had the sales rep, then they went off, and now they've got PS, and now they go off, and then the CSM, introduce that CSM even perhaps before the sales cycle closes, to set expectations, do a welcome call where the CSM leads it. PS can go off and do the whole deployment, and CS doesn't necessarily need to be involved, but then when they meet you again at the end, it's not like they're meeting you for the first time. It's just a natural evolution of their journey. So look at how you can cooperate with professional services and just get the customer understanding how they're going to be helped, and not abstract the internal organizational structure, the internal roles, the internal processes. Abstract that from the customer so that they don't see it. They just see their one journey, and there's some consistent people there.
Great, thanks, Kia. We're at end of time. I want to thank everyone for coming out to hear Kia speak today. Kia, great content. I encourage everyone to reach out and connect with Kia. And if you'd like to see how a customer success platform like Amity can really accelerate you in the direction of segmenting your customers, please just drop us a line. We'd be happy to give you a demonstration. Thanks everyone for coming out. And our next webinar is on Tuesday, May 10th. I'm the presenter, and it's going to be awesome. And the topic is simplifying customer success using closed-loop playbooks. So obviously, great tie-in with a lot of the questions today. We'll see you on May 10th, and thank you again for coming out. And that's it.